We often think of segregation as something confined to the Deep South. Here in California, segregation stories are closer than you'd imagine, casting a shadow over our Golden State and echoing through our neighborhoods. Here to help us understand these challenges and help to light a hopeful path forward, we have Adam Paul Susanek, architect and founder of the research project Segregation by Design. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Happy
Glad
to
to be
have
here.
you on. So, Adam, I wanted to get right into it. Reflecting on the past, what are some of the key lessons we've learned about the consequences of urban highway development?
Absolutely. I'll mention a few. I'll mention three of them. There's a bunch of them, but I'll mention just a couple right now. Well, first off, we haven't stopped expanding them in cities throughout the country, including here in California, in Texas, my home state of Florida, in Oregon, and more. Thousands of people stand to lose their homes currently due to planned freeway widenings. And a recent LA Times analysis found that the majority of these displacements are in communities of color again. Second is air pollution and noise pollution, which you can see here.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is air pollution. Census tracts surrounding urban highways tend to have higher rates of asthma, which is directly attributable to particulate matter from exhaust from the cars, but also brake pads and tire particulate matter. In the South Bronx, which you saw there briefly, every census tract is in the 99th percentile for asthma prevalence. And third is reduced local mobility and induced traffic. So highways prioritize long distance travel over local movement,
Hmm.
and highways have literally destroyed local connections between neighborhoods, severing streets and neighborhood grids, which is exactly what happened in West Oakland
Yeah.
when 980 divided it from downtown.
And Adam, you were mentioning, there's a lot of effects that are coming from this. You said there's air pollution, the health effects that it's having on people. How did we get here? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a long story, and it's the subject of my ongoing PhD and research. But a lot of it starts right after World War II with the growth of suburbs and subsequent white flight, which really reorganized the underlying spatial logic of American cities. Before the war, American cities were certainly segregated, but different races were in close proximity due to the dense nature of the built environment. Cities were based on walking and public transportation, so neighborhoods were physically close. But the car changes that, making possible much more longer and decentralized commutes,
Hmm.
giving rise to sprawling suburbs. So after the war, US policy becomes to encourage homeownership. The GI Bill incentivizes homeownership in these new suburbs through subsidized mortgages,
Wow.
but with the caveat that across the country, many of these new suburbs were closed to anybody considered non white. And this was based on the idea that racial proximity decreases property values. And because of that, it was standard practice in the real estate industry nationwide and in California as well to insert racially restrictive covenants into the deeds of houses in these new suburbs, prohibiting sale to anybody considered non white.
And Adam, you mentioned
So, the,
California. Could you tell us some examples of this history, particularly here in Sacramento and nearby parts of California?
yeah, absolutely. So, when this white flight happens, it drains out the areas sort of closer into the core. And this is when we start seeing the rise of the term inner city as a sort of dog whistle term to describe the sort of areas closer to downtown that had been the areas that white people had left to these new suburbs. Um, so when the Highway Act passes in 1956, it gives cities an unprecedented 90% federal match for local highway projects. And cities across the country and in California, I'll get to your actual question, see this as a one-two punch, simultaneously being able to solve that increasing traffic problem between these new suburbs and the jobs downtown,
Hmm.
as well as providing a means to clear out the decaying inner city neighborhoods, an official policy known as slum clearance. So where this happens, for instance, in California, is in West Oakland, which is just adjacent to downtown Oakland.
Yeah.
The 980 punches through the middle, displacing thousands, and creates a sort of wall between West Oakland and downtown. Because in addition to these highways being used to clear out these areas, these
Right.
inner city areas, as they became to be known after white flight, They're also used to sort of uphold, or they're built in such a way that's based on that racial proximity
Hmm.
idea, trying to keep different neighborhoods separate to increase property values. And this is what the 980 does in Oakland, really separating West Oakland from downtown.
Wow.
And then in Sacramento, yeah.
I was going to ask, I mean, amidst the challenges, is there a silver lining? Where do you see the most significant opportunities for positive change in urban planning today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing we need to do is stop expanding highways. There are several projects ongoing throughout the country that, as I mentioned at the top, potentially will displace thousands. And as we've seen at this point, with decades of widening, that it simply induces more traffic due to the
Hmm.
fact that it encourages more automobile dependent development, and encourages more people to use that route. So
Yeah.
we need to stop doing these widenings, not just because of the obvious injustice
Yeah.
that the widenings represent, but also the fact that they continue to not work. So we do need more development, because there's obviously a housing shortage in California. But one of the solutions would be, rather than continuously expanding these highways, would be transit-oriented development, building more housing in places where we can
Adam,
build
I know you
denser,
have
we can
so
build more
much
sustainably.
information on this. I'm going to let our viewers know where they can go for more, but thank you so much for sharing this. It was very insightful, and it's interesting to hear how it impacts California as well. You can find out more by going to segregationbydesign.com/about.